Commerce College, affiliated to NG University, Kottayam. Shermount College is managed by the vibrant and visionary leadership of Believers Eastern Church. We are very particular about a value-based education system. Since its beginning, Shermount College is offering BA English Language and Literature Model 1 course. We are really proud to announce that a fourth batch too, following their successors, scored 100% victory in UG degree exam. We are also happy to acknowledge you that our former students are doing PGs in well-reputed colleges. Some of them are placed in good companies too. Department of English always ready to give a space for creative students. We are focusing on an all-rounder education based on character development, academic achievements, co-curricular participation, etc. English is equipped with modern teaching technologies in order to be a supportive hand to create artists, writers, filmmakers, and above all, good human beings. We're really proud to organize a webinar on pandemic and pandemonium. We welcome you all to this webinar. Now, I cordially invite our dearest principal, Professor Dr. Maman Japriya sir, in order to deliver a few words. Sir, over to you, sir.
Good morning to you all. I am very much interested to interact with you through this media in this current special situation. First of all, I like to congratulate all my faculty members of English department, especially the HOD, Professor Anju Jos, the convener Gigi Jacob, and the student coordinator Gabri for taking all the pains for conducting the webinar successfully. I'm very thankful to Professor Sudhi Mohan, the chief resource person of this webinar, for sparing her valuable time for us. I'm also extend my sincere gratitude to all the participants of this program in different parts of the country. I congratulate my colleagues for selecting the topic Pandemic and Pandemonium, a post-colonial analysis for the COVID scenario. The virus of COVID-19 changed all our lifestyle and even our traditional habits. It adversely affected all economies, irrespective of rich or poor, developed or undeveloped. This is an important research topic at different angles. Moreover, we have to discuss how we can reopen the societies after COVID-19 pandemic, where the prevailing assumptions, methods, and theories of all social sciences are cracked. Literature students are always historians. They try to search for similar situation in the past. In the second half of the 19th century, a major outbreak of the plague spread across the world. It particularly devastated the Indian subcontinent, taking about 12 million lives in between 1984 and 1940. Responding to the threat of the trade interest, the colonial government in Calcutta passed a hasty piece of legislation, the Epidemic Disease Act of 1896, that authorized the brutal policing and the forced quarantining of the infected. The British military was deployed to conduct house-to-house searches to enforce segregation, both of the plague-stricken and those who had been in attendance of them, to whitewash and disinfect the infected dwellings, destroy the furniture, etc. The current situation, the fear and the chaos the virus has evoked, is better described as an uncertain pandemonium that has affected not only the governed but the government as well. I think in the coming discussions, you may come across all details of the current situation. So thank you for inviting me. And once again, I thank you all the participants for participating our webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable words. Now, I call upon Mrs. Anju Jose, Head of the Department, to introduce the resource person.
A very warm good morning to one and all. As for the Department of English, it's a moment of great pride and sheer delight. As the learners of English literature, as the students and the teachers, it's our duty to conduct productive, fruitful literary discussions on the ever-changing social scenario. And this event, this webinar, is titled as Pandemic and Pandemonium, is an output of such a thought. My intention is nothing but to introduce and invite the star of the day, Mrs. Shruti Mohan, who is presently working at Kakatiya Institute of Science and Technology as an assistant professor. She qualified her UGC NET during 2018, and since then she has been working as a UGC NET trainer also. And a person of boundless energy and creative thought, she published. In her credit, there are a lot of national as well as international journals. And she keeps on presenting her innovative and creative thoughts through various seminars about the different aspects of the multiple aspects of literature since her graduation days. So I hope and firmly believe our choice won't be wrong. She's the right person to lead such a session. And it's my honor and pleasure and privilege to invite you, dear madam, dear respected and my most beloved colleague, Mrs. Shruti Mohan, to the dais, to the platform. And madam, this platform is now for yours. And all the participants presented here, I wish you a very fruitful and productive session to all of you. Thank you for your cooperation, and over to you, ma'am, Shruti.
Thank you, ma'am. A very good morning to one and all. Am I audible and visible, ma'am?
One moment. Yeah. I can listen to you.
Am I visible too?
Yeah, you are visible now.
Okay, all right. Good morning to all. I'm Shruti. I appreciate the kind of venture that Shermount College of Arts and Commerce is putting forth for the betterment of student community and for the research faculty across the country. And it's my privilege to have a lecture over here. And shall I share the screen right now? I warmly welcome you all. There are my friends, my students, my teachers, and the entire crew of Shermount College, the student coordinators, everyone. I thank you first of all. I am moving on to the session. So we are all confronting such a pandemic situation, which is unprecedented ever. When we trace back the history, of course, we have Black Death or many other plague issues we have faced. But in this century, this is not that common to us. We are having a post-colonial identity these days. Lots of chaos and confusions, anxieties. And I think blending a literary theory, the most apt theory for this particular scenario could be post-colonial theory. When I was a student also, I thought of bridging literary theory into a practical level so that students can understand the concepts much better. So this is not just showering certain thoughts or not bombarding much theory. Instead, I would like to introduce my thoughts in connection with post-colonial theoretical terms, I could say. So I hope your cordial cooperation. And because of the climatic issues, I'm facing certain issues also. So if something went wrong, kindly pardon me. And I'm moving on to the session. Welcome you once again. I'm sharing my screen. Pandemic and Pandemonium, a post-colonial analysis of the COVID scenario. So I would like to exemplify better. I would like to introduce what is the titular significance of this topic. The word pandemic, we are very often using this term these days, pandemic, the coronavirus outbreak, pandemic, and the term pandemonium. I hope for literature students and teachers, and of course scholars, we are well aware of this term. When it comes to Milton's Paradise Lost, pandemonium is shown as a palace of the Satan. So here I'm introducing this term as a symbol of this chaos or entropic situation as the effect of this coronavirus outbreak, a post-colonial analysis of the COVID scenario. This is my title. So I'll read this out. Pandemic, the deadly virus transmission and its hazardous effects. Pandemonium, as I mentioned before.
Excuse me, madam. Excuse me, madam.
Yes,
Are
ma'am.
you presenting the PPT now?
Yes.
It's not visible.
Okay.
It's not visible. Try to share the screen once again, madam, please.
Okay, ma'am. Is it visible now?
Yeah, 1 minute. It's present. It is written like it's presenting, but it's not visible.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible. I think it's that you have pinged on to Shruti, ma'am.
It's visible. It's visible.
Okay. So I'm continuing. All
Okay.
right.
Okay. Continue.
Okay. So pandemonium, the chaotic situation emerged as a result of the coronavirus outbreak. So what I'm trying to do now is I'm blending the theory of post-colonialism with the contemporary entropic scenario. Post-colonial theory has influenced the way we read text, the way we understand national and transnational histories, and the way we understand the political implications of our own knowledge as scholars. Despite frequent critics from outside the field as well as from within it, post-colonial theory remains one of the key forms of critical humanistic interrogation in both academia and in the world. So for the sake of people who are from outside this literary field, I'm just introducing what is post-colonial theory. Post-colonial discourse is a critical underside of imperialism. The latter, that is imperialism, is a hegemonic form going back to the beginnings of empire building. Post-colonial theory took shape in response to the discourse as a way of explaining the complex colonial encounter. But the discourse itself required a consciousness of the colonial experience in its diverse articulations and a corresponding legitimation of the lives of those colonized. I would like to quote Leela Gandhi from her seminal book, Post-Colonial Theory. She introduces thus: post-colonialism can be seen as a theoretical resistance to the mystifying amnesia of the colonial aftermath. It is a disciplinary project devoted to the academic task of revisiting, remembering, and crucially interrogating the colonial past. So we know even in deconstruction or whatever other theories, the binary opposition is very much prevalent. In post-colonialism also, we have this dichotomy, this kind of binary opposition like black, white, the colonizer and the colonized, the slave and the master. This kind of dichotomy is very much crucial to post-colonialism as well. So similarly, in the contemporary situation, there is an emergence of certain binary oppositions. The first and the foremost binary opposition is virus versus victim. Virus as the master and victim as the slave. Virus victim is one of the notable binary opposition now, and the affected and the unaffected. From the human category itself, we have affected on the one hand and unaffected on the another. Another, when it comes to geographical location, containment zones, we are very much familiar with this term, containment zone and the safe zone, the places in which we don't have access. It is restricted to the common public, containment zone and safe zone. And finally, the ultimate reality called death on the one hand and cure on the other hand. So in short, I would like to address coronavirus as a 21st century colonial master. So coronavirus, if coronavirus is considered as a colonizer, then we people are the colonized. Not only the infected people who are going through the treatments or are already cured, plus those people, plus the people who are prone to this virus transmission. It is quite uncertain whether we will be infected this moment or the next moment. We don't know the medium or the carrier of this virus. Could be our parents, could be our relatives, could be our neighbors, could be a person from a bus, could be an auto rickshaw driver, whoever it be. The possibility is immense. So we have the colonizer and the colonized dichotomy here. Identity crisis, one of the prominent terms we often discuss in post-colonial theory, the question of identity. So face is the remark or one of the most recognizable emblem of a person. Face, facial recognition. So what happens when we are using mask these days? Though we are using it for a better cause, a good reason, in order to avoid this transmission or to safeguard ourselves, it has certain effect. It affects a lot in our identity. So look at the picture I have inserted in this slide. We could see 3 medical professionals treating a patient. So look at their attire, their mask, the entire covering of their body. So can we trace whether he's a male or he or she, male or female? It is not that clear. His cultural background is not clear. Which religion they are coming from, it is quite unclear. Political background, nothing is clear when we are donning this mask and the attire that is meant for safeguarding from this virus. So medical professionals, they have lost identity completely. As a doctor, maybe doctors who are very much proficient in the field, and their identity, the name itself has vanished, just a doctor or a nurse or any person in the medical field. What about celebrities? We often identify a person by his face, especially celebrities, people from sports field or film field or literary field or any field. Face is one of the important aspect we often connect with. So celebrities are also facing this identity issues to a large extent. And a common populace, very obvious common populace. And what about the infected people? They could be considered as the subaltern community, the other. They should be secluded, they should be marginalized from the mainstream society for the sake of treatment or whatever, or to protect the mainstream. Still, they have the identity of a subaltern. It is quite obvious the self and the other context and the process of othering by Spivak. All these concepts have much significance in this identity issue nowadays. The next concept I would like to contend with is COVIDian exile. So the concept of exile is very much clear for us. What about COVIDian exile? The condition of exile involves the idea of a separation and distancing from either a literal homeland or from a cultural and ethnic origin. Once a person is infected by this virus, he or she should be away from home should be secluded in some cloisters of a hospital or some asylums for the sake of treatment, definitely. But still, the psyche of that person is similar to an exile. The COVID infected person is also in a way experiences the anxieties of an exile. He is secluded and left alone, though it is a necessity. Next issue I would like to discuss with is the question of privacy. Privacy is being questioned these days. Even my neighbor has the right to ask my whereabouts, where are my, what all places I visited, who are the people I met. So I'm giving the license to my neighbor or whomever I'm meeting these days. So my personal affairs is no longer a private issue. It is getting publicized. So here comes the importance of the concept of panopticism, propounded by Michel Foucault. Surveillance, we're always under the surveillance. And what is observed as personal is getting publicized. And think about 2-3 months back, in which any person is infected, the medical people or the police officials, they will trace the trajectory of the person by taking certain route map, and they will present that on media or social media, especially news channels we have witnessed. So tracing one's trajectory could be compared with cartography. So cartography is one of the main thing in which this colonial masters used to employ. So cartography is nothing but the art of preparing maps for exploration. Maps and mapping are dominant practices of colonial and post-colonial cultures. Colonization itself is often consequent on a voyage of discovery, a bringing into being of undiscovered land. So discovery, yes, it is discovery. The person who is infected has traveled to this particular place. So that particular place is identified as a new land, a discovered land. So the medical professionals and the police officials, they are in a pursuit. They are in a quest to understand what all regions this corona has made their colonies. Next issue is the use of language, the question of language. Introduction of various terms into our routine colloquial as well as written language. So we often use the word quarantine, COVID-19 as a compound word like coronavirus disease 19, 2019, COVID-19, lockdown, home isolation, though it is already there, it existed already, still we are giving a new meaning. We are attributing certain other meanings to it and using it as a very common word these days. And we use this more euphemistic language in a mild and indirect word of expression, which is substituted for one more considered to be too harsh or blunt when referring to something unpleasant or embarrassing. For example, if someone dies, we'll say passed away instead of dead. So euphemism, it became a trend these days, euphemism and introduction of new words into our vocabulary. Next aspect I would like to introduce is the question of boundaries. The question of boundary, border, margin, or frontier has always debated, much debated topics. So we have boundaries from one country to another, from one state to another, even from one district to another. What not, from my home to my neighbor's home, there is a boundary. So all these boundary issues are much more clear, very much vivid these days, because we have to maintain social distancing for the sake of safeguarding ourselves. This is a question of boundary. The idea of the border is crucial to the post-colonial studies and manifests itself in concerns with the constructed boundaries between people, nations, and even individuals. I would like to quote Pratt. Liminal spaces act to problematize and so dismantle the binary systems which bring them into being. It is this idea of the deconstructive potential of the space where two cultures encounter one another and which also underlies the idea of the transformative energy. So talking much more about boundaries, we lost one of our basic rights. the right to travel. So we have to give certain requests. Sir, I have to travel from this particular place to that place. I'm traveling with this person in this particular vehicle at this time from my home to this particular location. So we have to submit that with sign, and if only we get permission from the police, from the cops, then only we can travel. So COVID-19 has limited the freedom to traverse, maybe from one place to another, from one state to another, from one country to another, definitely. So frontiers become more obvious, and this separation has made the people aware of their landscapes, which region they belong to, and the mindscapes. They say their psyche also got colonized. So landscapes and mindscapes. A clear-cut separation emerged. So as I mentioned already, one of the basic human rights gets violated, the right to travel. And we witnessed the closure of certain boundaries. So wherever we identify a particular place where we could trace lots of people who are infected by this virus, then naturally what the government can do is they will close that particular place. No entrance, no vehicles from other places are permitted. So the closure of boundaries. Then diaspora. Think about diasporic people. They confront travails in terms of their existence in other places, longing for homeland, issues regarding citizenship. So definitely think about the nurses, our angels who are working abroad. So they will definitely get a secondary kind of citizenship, and they will work for 24 into 7. And they might be longing for their homeland, a homecoming, a coming back, but everything is denied. The travel system, the trains, flights, everything got stopped. Later also it is impossible for them. So that longing for homeland, craving to come back to one's own native place is a recurrent image in post-colonial fiction or even poetry. So citizenship issue, and think about the refugees. Think about the Tibetan citizen, the Tibetan refugees in India. What if already they are refugees? They're already given a secondary citizenship. And now, after this infection also, they will be not doubly or in a triple manner, they are colonized. They are, in a way, marginalized, we could say. Another prominent term I would like to share is mimicry. When colonial discourse encourages the colonized subject to mimic the colonizer by adopting the colonizer's cultural habits, assumptions, institutions, and values, the result is never a single reproduction of those traits. So when we were colonized once, we are forced to imitate our master, the colonial master, the whites. So they came and settled in this land. They colonized not only India, many countries across the globe. And the reason behind their arrival was that white man's board, and it is very much clear. Though they entered India for that white man's burden to civilize us, to civilize the so-called barbarians across the globe, they wanted us to speak English. They wanted us to imitate their habits, assumptions, institutions, and values, everything. So this is not just an exact reproduction. Instead, what the Indians or other people, what they do is a blurred copy of the colonizer, and that can be quite threatening as well. We will be adapting, we'll be definitely adopting certain strategies. At the same time, we are adapting to it. We are making certain changes to suit with the master. So what all precautions or what all strategies we are employing these days? We'll wear mask, we will use sanitizer, we'll maintain social distancing. We are always suspicious of the other standing next to us. We are not sure whether he is infected or she is infected. This is because mimicry is never very far from mockery, since it can appear to parody whatever it mimics. Mimicry therefore locates a crack in the certainty of colonial dominance and uncertainty in its control of the behavior of the colonized. So I'm connecting this, as I mentioned before, After the advent of coronavirus, people are getting adapted to the nature of the colonizer. So what all preventive measures we should adapt? Likewise, we used the sanitized mask and all these things. Next important thing, the concept I would like to share with you is hybridity. Hybrid. In horticulture, we know what is a hybrid. Blending two particular species into a new one. In literary theory, especially in post-colonialism, we come across this word hybridity. According to Bill Ashcroft, actually this work is written by three people, Ashcroft, Griffith and Tiffins. According to Ashcroft et al., hybridity in literature, in theory, it refers to the creation of new transcultural forms within the contact zone produced by colonization. So what is this kind of transcultural forms? Maybe this mask or the sanitizer, everything must be used before by the medical professionals only. But nowadays, it is being used by drivers, it is being used by housewives, it is being used by teachers. So it is a kind of we are accepting certain cultural features from one culture to another. So creation of a new transcultural forms within the contact zone. I will address this concept later, contact zone produced by colonization. The term hybridity has been most recently associated with the work of Homi Bhabha, whose analysis of colonizer or colonized relations stresses their interdependence and the mutual construction of their subjectivities. Hybridity may not always be relating to career. It could also be a social, it could be political, it could be linguistic, it could be religious. So the concept of hybridity. Next topic is alterity. Alterity, the other. The literal meaning of alterity is the state of being other or different or diversity, otherness. Its English derivatives are alternate, alternative, alternation, even alter ego. The coronavirus has disseminated this concept of alterity or other as the concept of Gayatri Spivak, the other and the self. The self-identity of the colonizing subject, indeed the identity of imperial culture, is inextricable from the alterity of colonized others, an alterity determined, according to Spivak, by a process of othering. Next prominent term I would like to share with you is ambivalence. The ambiguous way in which the colonizer and colonized regard one another. That is called ambivalence. That the colonizer, now we have colonizer as corona as a colonizer, and we people are the colonized. So there is an ambiguous relation existing between the colonizer and the colonized. The colonizer often regards the colonized as both inferior yet exotically other. Think about that master-slave relationship. Master always consider the slave as inferior and the exotic other, while the colonized regards the colonizer as both enviable yet correct. So in the British counterpart, what we witnessed is they exploited the so-called inferior other for the sake of their betterment. Maybe they had a better cause in their mind, but what happened in India, we all know, it is very clear. In a context of hybridity, this often produces a mixed sense of blessing and curse. Because of this relationship, the ambivalent relationship existing between the colonizer and the colonized, for some people in some professions, the coronavirus outbreak, in a way, is a blessing. For some other, majority of people consider this coronavirus outbreak as a curse. So based on the relationship, so people who are in the online field, they can find much more time, they can develop their ideas better, and the entire classroom has shifted into an online platform. People will consider this as a positive, at the same time negative. Based on our convenience, it will change from blessing to curse or from curse to blessing. Ambivalence also describes the complex mix of attraction and repulsion that characterizes the relationship between the colonizer and the colonized. The relationship is ambivalent because the colonized subject is never simply and completely opposed to the colonizer. So in short, the relationship between coronavirus and the common populace is quite perplexing and ambivalent. So we are all familiar with Habermas' public sphere. So we could trace that shift, that transformation in spheres. People have the tendency to interact in a social group generally. So for that, we have public spheres to have discourses, having debates, and that's how human beings maintain relationships, public spheres. But all these public spheres are turning into private spheres as a result of this corona scenario. So a class, think about a class, it is considered as a miniature society. People from various backgrounds are joining together there for the sake of education. And that particular social, real social setting is turned into a private sphere where the students are joining through technology. So that shift is very much obvious. I addressed you before that I'll explain this contact zone later. So what is contact zone? It is a term that was developed by Pratt to describe social spaces where disparate cultures meet, clash, and grapple with each other, often in highly asymmetrical relations of dominance and subordination, like colonialism, slavery, or their aftermaths, as they are lived out across the globe today. So this contact zone where people from various cultures meet, clash, and grapple. And what happened? As a result of this, the dominance and subordination will also become much more obvious. So here the contact zones are responsible for the transmission of this virus. Contact zones naturally become containment zones. So this is what I would like to talk about, the shift in spheres. The next important aspect I would like to talk about is post-colonial body. So we are very much aware of body writing. What is the importance of body in literature? The post-colonial body, the post-colonial subject, the colonized body has been very much central to the colonialist and post-colonial discourses. Much post-colonial writing in recent times has contended that body is a crucial site for inscription. So our present colonial master is a virus, an invisible virus, a microscopic organism in which it is transmitting from one human body to another. So even before in post-colonial theory itself, body is considered as a place, as a crucial site for inscription. Here we have an opportunity for the colonial master to enter into the colonized body, and that's how it is increasing its empire. It is increasing its colonies from one region to another. So how people are perceived controls how they are treated, and physical differences are crucial in such constructions. For example, a person who is above 60 years of age or a child below 10 years, so So their bodies are very much vulnerable for the sudden entrance of this virus. The transmission of virus to the physical body could be compared with this concept of post-colonial body, very much prone to this infection. So age group, cultural background, geographical location, all these things matter. I would like to talk about the act of decolonization or decolonization. So when we trace the history of even Indian colonization and its awaiting independence, the freedom struggle, the people who are in the forefront. So we just celebrated the August 15, 2 days back, and we commemorated the great deeds of our freedom fighters, how they bring back our India as such, and what are its relics left of when the Britishers left the land, and what all gains we have. And maybe we are speaking in a common language and we are understanding this as a gift given by them. The railroad, much more facilities they have provided, maybe for their convenience, still we are using that and we are getting much more civilized in a way. So wherever there is colonization, there should be a decolonization as well. There are countries like Tibet still colonized by the Chinese government, and there are many rumors spreading regarding the origin of this virus and how it could be controlled. Issues like invention of new vaccines and the Arogya Setu app. We are aware of many more things. Still, there is a kind of uncertainty whether we will decolonize ourselves, whether we will come out of this dilemma. So life is, to a certain extent, desperate these days. We are trying to make everything normal, but we should decolonize ourselves by maintaining all the rules and regulations introducing by the medical officials and the courts. So the entire globe is in a pursuit to decolonize itself from this deadly virus. And let's envision a decolonized world. I wish you all a healthy and happy life ahead. We should surpass the situation without much issues. We should take care of our dear ones and let this literary or whatever disciplines we should develop much better. We can utilize all the online platform. I thank Shermount College for this opportunity. I'm stopping my presentation.
Thank you, Shruti. It was actually a wonderful session. And it's actually the time for the participants to write their questions, if there is any. If there is any doubts regarding the presentation, you can write it down, post it in the chat box. It will be answered by our resource person. So it is actually the time for that. If there is any, please do type your doubts and send it. Use the facility, use the platform as much as possible. Okay.
Yeah, I would like to answer Abhishek sir's question. As we speak about decolonization, the things that we adapt as a colonizer still prevail in our society. But in this condition, we are really adapting. Are we really adapting? After all, it's not permanent. Isn't it just a fight against the pandemic? Is this adaptation gonna last long? So definitely this is a fight against this pandemic. Moreover, we should adapt to the situation because we don't know. Nothing is certain whether how long we will be here and whether this vaccines will work. And we know how many, I mean, lakhs of people are losing their lives and how many people are being infected every day. And especially we are very much aware, I mean, very much desperate about people who are aged, our parents and dear ones, young ones. So definitely there will be traces of this colonization issue. We cannot speak of decolonization now. The entire government is trying for that and we should be a part of it. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the question. I genuinely agree with this is this fight, of course, and we should adapt. Any more questions? You can post your questions and feedback. Thank you, ma'am, for the comment. Yeah, how does pandemic affect our mental problems? Yeah, mindset, psyche. So the kind of reclusive life we are living in. So we are losing, as I mentioned, we lost that social spheres. So as teachers, we cannot go to the real college building. We cannot meet students really in the direct manner. So everything is technologized. So definitely this will affect. And there are, of course, writers, creative people, theoreticians, or even common people who find happiness and who made much creative stuffs out of the seclusion. So whenever we are alone, whenever we are secluded, maybe the initial time will make us much more desperate. But later, as Phoenix bird will come out of all these negative vibes, we will find positive things. Human beings are drawn to this. Will definitely make wonders. At times, decolonization itself is impossible. So what's the possibility of decolonization? Yeah, nice question. Anyway, we are sure that our country is decolonized now, but yeah, there are traces of elements of colonization now, but we are using it in a positive manner, right? We are not crying, we are not lamenting over, oh, we were slaves at that time. Instead, we are celebrating. So likewise, now Corona is just like a family member. We know we are speaking about Corona. It is inherent in our psyche these days. But let's hope life should be back. So much more possibility of decolonization. As a person from this branch, I am not that unaware. Let's be optimistic about that. Yeah. I'm answering to Arya Ma'am's question. After this pandemic, can we distinguish our literature as post-COVID literature, like we distinguish literature as post-colonization is possible and effective? Definitely. The entire history will be turned into two. The pre-corona or pre-COVIDian period and the post-COVIDian period. It will happen, I guess. So the literature, these days, even in blogs or in social media, people are writing about this. Though it is a scientific aspect, still literature has such a wide umbrella to to encapsulate all the wide range of disciplines. So definitely. Yeah, thank you, Surya ma'am. And again, a question from Ranjana Mehrotra ma'am. Do you think that the post-COVID literature will be more empathetic to the neo-colonized people like the migrants? Definitely, because we have experienced that situation. So that maybe after 1 or 2 months, we don't know. Maybe even I myself will be a victim for this. So we'll definitely develop this feeling of empathy. Gino sir's question, madam, the corona precautions like masking face depersonalize one's social identity, but family identity is also visible. Does a suppressed social identity become an explosion of family identity? And does it lead to the bursting of one's identity? Yes, definitely we are all having family identity. Family is the first society in which we are born into. Yeah, as a result of this issue, we are more connected to our family. We are always in the family. So not that bursting of identity exactly, but as social beings, our life, our professional life is to a certain extent is getting affected. Thank you for the question, Gino sir. Colonization had few positive impacts on our country, especially in the field of education and cityscapes back then. Is there any positive impact due to corona from literature's point of view? Definitely, from the literary perspective. Actually, time is a major feature. It's a spatio-temporal dimension. When we are secluded in the cloisters of our own household, we have immense time to think about ourselves, think about the person who is nearby, thinking about the relationship, thinking about literature, thinking about the beautiful aspects of life. Though we are lamenting, still we could find happiness all around. So definitely in literature, we could find positive impacts. We could write, we could appreciate literature, we could find new themes, we could publish, we have ample time. Along with teaching, we can be more student kind of temperament, we can maintain such a temperament. Thank you, Skaria sir. Okay, Dia ma'am, can you say what all new things, all what changes that can happen after this pandemic as the way colonization affected? Yeah, we will all be techies for sure, especially people from English. We are very poor in using technology. So I am such a victim. But these days I'm forced to speak and facing such a scholarly community. And this is just because of Corona. So I should be happy for that at least. Then definitely even the entire students have much access to the technical knowledge, not only the oral knowledge that the teacher is delivering in the classroom. We have many limitations when we are teaching in the classroom, but now we have a much wider platform. Okay, sorry, the ego, super ego, I understood. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Gino, sir, for the correction. Any more questions? Thank you, Christy, for the feedback. So I think I can wind this session here, the question answer session, if there is no question. So I earnestly thank Shermount College, the principal, the entire management, the English department, the teachers, the coordinators, head of the department, Anju Jos ma'am, the student coordinators. I can understand the pain that you have gone through all these days regarding how the proper execution. So thank you so much. You can, I think the time for filling the feedback form. Over to Anju ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank
Shruti, madam, we are really happy to have you. And it was such a wonderful session.
Thank
Maybe
you,
we may not even think of such an aspect like viewing the greatest epidemic, maybe the epidemic of an era, to observe, to analyze it from a post-colonial aspect. So such discussions are most needed, and fruitful, productive discussions regarding with respect to literature is so much needed, since we all said and believe that literature mirrors life. If it is so, we have to conduct such discussions, and I'm so happy to have you here. And your presentation was so wonderful, and I'm so happy. I'm contented for that, and we are extremely thankful, so grateful, and we extend our gratitude and sincere thanks to you, Madam Sudhi Mohan, simply because of presenting here, simply because of coming here, simply even through the online platform you are here. You spend your valuable time, your knowledge, all for us. We are so much thankful to you. Extremely thanks. We are extended our great thank you to you. And an announcement to all the participants. Now you can get the feedback form link in the chat box. Please be very much careful while you fill up the form, especially regarding the spelling of your name as well as the email ID. What you have written will be considered for the issuing of the certificate. So be very careful while filling it, and you are supposed to submit it as soon as possible. And moreover, thanks a lot to the participants. I think it's like 57 people are here now, and very much thank you. We extend our thanks to you also. Honorable Principal, he has been participating it for such a long time. We are very much grateful to you, sir, and thanks a lot once again. And the session is winding up for now. You can send your feedback form, and your e-certificate will be issued to your email. Thanks a lot once again.